I don't like the way that new Christian movies advertise themselves. Let's get into the video. There's a recent trend with sponsored ads on Instagram where a company will pay creators to create an ad, specifically political commentators in many cases, where they'll say stuff such as, "This movie is being canceled by Hollywood. Go and watch it today." And then it creates sort of a drive of, if you are a conservative, you must watch this movie, and this movie is necessary viewing for you. And I don't really like this strategy at all. And I must preface this by saying I know people that are political commentators that post ads and are sponsored by them, and all power to them in terms of receiving sponsorships from these deals. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about the scripts that these studios are sending to these content creators to repeat in their ads, because they really don't have any control over what they say when they're putting out these sponsored ads. The average Christian movie is not good at all. And the average Christian that has been going to church for their life and went to a few of these Christian movies knows that these movies are not good either. While advertising for Christian movies in the past did not necessarily move tickets, what it did do is honestly show what the movie was like to its viewers, so that they have an expectation of what the content was going to be based on the quality of the film itself and the story. But Christian movies today in their advertising do not focus on the story, do not focus on the quality, do not focus on the production value. What they're advertising instead is a way of rebellion in terms of being edgy. Go out and rebel against society and watch our new Christian movie. When in reality, that's not really what the movie is in the first place. It's not a political movie, it's a Christian movie. They're misidentifying what the type of movie it is in the ads itself, and almost not telling the truth fully and saying that this Christian movie is a political movie when it isn't. There are several examples of Christian movies that don't do this. Jesus Revolution was honest about what it was. It was honest about its production quality. It was honest about the script, what the story was. And that's what they used to advertise to drive people into the theaters. They did not do a message of, "This is an edgy movie that you must watch to rebel against Hollywood that does not want you to watch this movie." Because that doesn't really work at all, and that would be dishonest. Because you're making up claims that don't really exist in the first place. Most people have not heard of that specific Christian movie before you actually posted that video, and you can't really say, "Hollywood does not want you to see this. Reviewers are angry about this movie." Those reviewers most likely have not even heard of that movie in the first place. And I think, as many other content creators that have focused on this issue have said, it all started with The Sound of Freedom, and that strategy actually worked because it was not necessarily focused on just a pure Christian movie. It was more focused on the element of a political issue, so they were able to capture that and then drive the movie to critical success in the box office. That, when you look at it afterwards, in terms of other movies that have tried to use that same strategy in advertising, often from the same studio, it's failed. You never really see any of these movies that they have advertised with this method working at all at the box office to the same way that The Sound of Freedom did. I think what we're seeing here is that these creators, these studios, they're putting these movies out. They're saying, okay, this is not getting a good box office return. So then they're having to go back to the drawing board, and they realize, well, instead of advertising it further, we can just throw out a few $1,000s at some political commentators who can then say, well, Hollywood doesn't want you to watch this movie. It's being censored right now. That's why they don't want it's not doing well in the box office, because Hollywood doesn't want you to watch this. The reviewers are bombing it because, ooh, this movie is against their views or something like that. When in reality, in many cases, it's more so about the quality of the movie itself than it is anything political in nature. Though that thing, in terms of not liking a movie because it is political in nature, does exist in many cases. The advertising wasn't necessarily wrong when it came to The Sound of Freedom, but once they replicated that advertising style in movies that were not controversial at all in any measure, it was just a generic Christian movie, then it came to the point of, why are they still doing it, and why are they replicating this advertising style on something that isn't a political movie in the first place? It's just a normal Christian movie. Here's my theory. Christian viewers of Christian movies know that Christian movies are not good, but political viewers of movies will go and watch a movie just out of spite. If you capture the spite of those political viewers of movies, then they'll rush to the theater despite whoever they hate to go watch that movie, and then you get ticket sales through that method. You can't necessarily tell someone be a good Christian and watch our movie, because then you're going to get lambasted in terms of your own PR. But you were able to say be a good conservative, a good libertarian, a good whatever, and watch this movie. That does work. And that's what I think they're trying to capture in this entire style of advertising, of sponsoring political commentators on different social media platforms. And once again, this is not about the political commentators themselves, as I have no problem with any of that. There's nothing wrong with receiving a sponsorship. I just don't like these scripts that these studios are sending to these commentators to repeat. I don't like that part at all. It's the scripts that I have a problem with more than anything, because I believe that they're being dishonest in those scripts about the reality of the box office that's going on. You can't advertise Left Behind as a political movie. You have to advertise Left Behind as being a good Christian movie. Whether it's good is up to your opinion, but either way, you can't advertise Christian media from the political nature. You have to advertise it by whether it's a good adaptation of the books that it's coming from, whether it has a good script, whether the story is good, whether it's coherent, whether it's not cheesy. That's the things that you can advertise it by. When something is not political, you cannot advertise it as something that is being attacked because it's political. Whether the world views it as political or not, that doesn't matter. You cannot advertise a Christian movie as something that's primarily edgy from a political standpoint. You have to advertise it as something that stands out from a Christian standpoint. My fear is that an endless cycle is being created now with Christian movies, where they will not advertise a movie at all before it comes out. The movie does poorly as a result in the box office, so then they can turn around and then spend a couple $1,000s on some political commentators to put out sponsored ads, then saying this movie's being silenced and canceled. So then it drives people into the movie theaters to watch that movie that's supposedly being silenced and canceled. That's what I don't want to happen. I don't know if that's what's happening here, but it appears to be so in many cases. Like the most recent Christian movie that's being under this new sponsorship cycle, I did not hear a single word about this movie before they put out these ads saying that it was being silenced and canceled. So what it tells me in this case is it appears from an outsider's perspective that they did not advertise this movie, and they just waited to save money on advertising so they could sponsor some creators on Instagram to then turn it around and drive people into the box office without even having to do normal advertising in the first place. I know this is just a conspiracy at the end of the day, but there's really no avoiding it when you look at everything that goes on in terms of the advertising of these new Christian movies in the last couple of years. There's nothing I can really do about it, but at the same time, when I see an ad for a movie where I know that the studio of the movie is dishonestly advertising it, it makes me not want to go to that movie, because I know that they're not telling the full truth about the content of the movie. They're focusing on driving up sensationalism that wasn't even there to begin with. Just like if I make content that isn't good, like this video, I can't really say that I'm being silenced when YouTube doesn't show it to people. I obviously know that my content isn't to the same quality of other creators, so I can't really use that excuse to begin with. Which, to be honest, you honestly see that in a lot of cases in terms of content creators being silenced when they don't really put any effort into ensuring that their posts get to other people in the first place, but that's a topic for another day. So ending this video, like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so that you'll know the next time that I post a video that's hopefully less of a poorly put together rant than this one. Thank you for watching, and God bless.